What if scapegoat survivors of narcissistic parents can't find safe people today? Do you question whether you can accurately identify safe people to get close to? Or do you worry that you unintentionally get close to people who are not safe? And do you wonder if you can trust your feelings to guide you towards safe people? Well, recovery from narcissistic abuse has three components. I've called these the three pillars of recovery in past videos, books, and courses. And just to review, pillar number one involves making sense of what happened so that you can know it was not your fault. Pillar number two is gaining distance from narcissistic abusers and closeness to safe people. And pillar number three refers to living in defiance of the narcissist rules. Today, I want to address a question about the second pillar that I see time and again. And that is, what if I cannot find and get close to safe people? Well, scapegoat survivors have learned that closeness to others is often dangerous. This understanding can make it hard to get close to safe people. Everyone has templates for what closeness to others should look and feel like. Those raised by parents who were safe people have templates for closeness that point them towards similar people today. Of course, scapegoat survivors were not raised by such a safe person. Their unconscious templates for closeness tell them to expect to be devalued, deprived, and domineered. The scapegoat child also learns that nobody will care if their feelings do get hurt. In today's video, I discuss why it can be hard for scapegoat survivors to find and get close to safe people as they recover from narcissistic abuse. Survivors at this stage may be determined to catch and repel the kind of narcissistic abuse that they used to have to just accept. One way that survivors may do this is to move away from others whenever they find themselves feeling bad around them. This approach may actually interfere with learning that some of these others may be imperfect rather than dangerous. An imperfect but safe person might occasionally act in ways that lead you to feel bad. However, they may still care about your feelings, express genuine remorse if those feelings get hurt, and earnestly try not to repeat such injuries. I will explain how the scapegoat child's template for closeness can lead to feeling bad in close relationships and create doubt that others will care that they even feel this way. It is not possible, of course, to never feel bad in a close relationship, but we can expect that the other person will care if and when our feelings get hurt. And if you watch until the end, I'll show how to use this principle to distinguish imperfect yet safe people from sort of more dangerous people today. Well, my name is Jay Reed, and I'm a licensed psychotherapist in California, and I specialize in helping survivors of narcissistic abuse reclaim the quality of life that they deserve. And I'd like to let you know about a new opportunity to further your recovery from narcissistic abuse. It's called the Rise and Reclaim Healing Toolkit for Scapegoat Survivors. And in it, you'll receive my book called Growing Up as the Scapegoat Child to Narcissistic Parents, A Guide to Healing, and a worksheet that offers a structured approach to organize your recovery process. And it focuses on key areas of healing each month. And finally, you'll receive the Quick Guide to Recovery from Narcissistic Abuse, which offers a concise, easy to follow guide that outlines the essential steps to start your recovery and regain control of your life. You can find the link to the toolkit in the description box below. The unconscious logic of closeness. Well, lessons from narcissistic abuse die hard. To keep a relationship with a narcissistic parent together, scapegoat children have to believe that they themselves are defective and undeserving. Such beliefs justify their parents' devaluation, deprivation, and dominance of them. Now, the child can continue to see the parent as good and share in the only reality the parent offers the child. As a scapegoat child grows into an adolescent and an adult, they may consciously dispute such beliefs about themselves. Nonetheless, getting emotionally close to a potential partner or friend might still activate these beliefs of being undeserving and or defective. For instance, a scapegoat survivor may find it hard to know they are close to someone unless worried about whether that person will accept them. If the survivor is not worried, so this logic goes, then the other must not be that important to them. Such a worry complies with the scapegoat survivor's belief that they are defective and undeserving of the other's friendship or partnership. It also increases the survivor's chances of continuing to get close to narcissistically abusive people today. Well, let's illustrate this with another anonymized case example. Chauncey was a 31-year-old man who had always braced himself whenever he had to interact with someone. His body told him that anything and everything could go wrong when other people were involved. At the same time, he felt a nagging loneliness that he really wanted relief from. He depended on his friend, Mike, to spare him from his loneliness. When he hung around Mike, Chauncey felt like his troubles went away. Mike was charismatic and always seemed to have exciting social plans for Chauncey to join in on. Most of the conversations they had tended to center around Mike. They might talk about what Mike thought about certain current events, or Mike's hopes for a promotion at work, or who Mike wanted to date. Mike rarely showed interest in Chauncey's life, but this did not seem remarkable to Chauncey. He had always felt like he mattered less to the person he was in relationship with. Chauncey knew Mike was important because he felt undeserving of Mike's friendship. He worried each week that Mike would not invite him to hang out in the coming weekend. Chauncey wondered if he was saying or doing the right things around Mike. The threat of Mike deciding that, say, he was bored with Chauncey always seemed to loom. Once scapegoat survivors start to question how negatively they feel in life, we might say that recovery begins. Now they can begin to take stock of what they were unfairly put through. At this point, it is important to structure as safe an environment as possible. And this is what pillar number 2 is all about. That is moving away from narcissistically abusive people and towards safe people. The old lessons of what closeness means pose a challenge to this pillar. The scapegoat survivor's beliefs that they are defective and undeserving lead to feeling bad with others quite often. Survivors may be confused as to whether this is because of their own past or a reflection of the other's unsafe or dangerous ways. This question gets even more loaded when the survivor fears being wrong in their feelings. They may have suffered consistent and humiliating invalidation of their feelings during their upbringing. So, discovering that their reaction to someone else is based more on their own template for closeness than, say, the other's behavior might throw them back to being humiliatingly invalidated. So again, let's illustrate with Chauncey's situation. He worked as a middle school English teacher. He had a few colleagues that he ate lunch with. One day, their conversation led to what it was like in their homes growing up. Chauncey's friend Fred said, my dad was tough. He insisted that I do all my chores before I could play with my friends. And he'd go over my homework with me every night to see if I was doing it right. But overall, I'd say I had it pretty good. He rarely raised his voice and never laid a finger on me. Plus, I always knew the guy loved me. I could talk to him about anything, even when I was mad at him. Chauncey was confused by what he was hearing. A parent who was firm but loving at the same time? Chauncey's father offered a stark contrast. Chauncey always felt like he could do nothing right around his father. His father would tell Chauncey to do chores before he saw his friends, but then claim that Chauncey did not do them well enough to gain his permission to leave the house. His father would check Chauncey's homework too, but if he found a mistake, he'd yell at Chauncey for being careless, stupid, and supposedly irresponsible. Chauncey could only talk to his father about things that reflected well on his father. He could thank his father for his supervision that supposedly led to Chauncey's good grades. Chauncey, though, could not say how oppressed and rejected his father's actions often led him to feel. His father would rarely prioritize what was important to Chauncey. He did not ask Chauncey about his life at school or what he liked about his favorite sport, football. Closeness to his father for Chauncey meant feeling smaller, incapable, and expendable. As Chauncey reflected on the differences between his versus Fred's father, he started to do some internet research. After Googling terms like bossy parent or harsh parent, He came across an explanation of how parents can engage in narcissistic abuse of children. "This is it," he exclaimed to himself. Now he had a framework to understand what he had survived as a child and how it was affecting him today. Well, the old lesson: feelings only matter when they are right. Exploring this question of why a survivor feels unsafe with another can feel perilous. Initially, the question is whether the survivor is right or not in their reaction to the other person. This formulation of the question may reflect the limited options the scapegoat child had. They did not have a parent who cared about and wanted to understand their feelings. Instead, their narcissistic parent was always right in what they felt, while the child was typically wrong. It is an either-or situation for the scapegoat survivor trying to figure out this question. Either the scapegoat survivor is right and this person is unsafe, or they are wrong in their feelings and the person is, in fact, safe. Scapegoat survivors may reasonably assume that the other person will not care about their feelings. After all, their parent did not show care about their feelings, especially when those feelings reflected dissatisfaction with that parent. For the narcissistic parent to acknowledge that they act in ways that could hurt their child could mean that they are inadequate as a parent. Inadequacy like this is often intolerable to a narcissistic person and must be denied. Their kids' feelings that remind them of their inadequacy must also be denied. The scapegoat child then learns that their feelings generally do not matter to others. To have any hope of getting listened to, they must prove that their feelings are right. Otherwise, the child gets repudiated. Their feelings are not inherently worth their parents' loving attention. So, back to Chauncey. He began to question how he felt in relation to his friend Mike. Why did he worry so much about Mike's reaction to him when he was pretty sure Mike did not worry about his reaction in a similar way? If Chauncey was not the one to initiate contact via text or phone call, would Mike ever seek out Chauncey? And why should Chauncey have to feel like he does not matter as much as Mike in their friendship? The thing was, Chauncey could not imagine sharing these feelings with Mike. He knew that Mike would act like Chauncey was crazy and probably withdraw from or reject Chauncey. Mike would probably also tell a lot of other people about how overly sensitive Chauncey was. It could turn into a debacle. Chauncey would second guess whether he was right to feel inadequate in his friendship with Mike. He told himself, maybe I'm just making all this up. Man, I must be kind of messed up to always see Mike as such a bad guy. These sorts of conclusions kept Chauncey from telling Mike how he felt. The resulting dilemma for the scapegoat survivor. Well, the scapegoat survivor who feels mistreated today wants to know if this is a reliable indicator that the other is not safe. The only way to understand such situations is to wonder if they are right or wrong in their feelings. It does not feel like an option to express and explore their feelings about the other person to that person. Survivors have learned that the other will not care about their feelings or they'll get defensive. So the survivors may find themselves in an isolated position trying to figure out if the other person is safe. A different way to figure out who is safe. Scapegoat survivors may figure out who is safe based on how those other people respond to their feelings. Survivors can shift the question from, do I feel bad when I'm with this person, to, how does this person respond when I tell them how I feel? This shift allows scapegoat survivors to find people who care about their feelings. The survivor's feelings do not have to be right instead of wrong. Their feelings can warrant attention and understanding just because they are present. If the other person withdraws or rejects you when you express how you feel, then they may not be safe. And therapy is one place to practice this shift. One of the gifts of therapy is that at some point, clients will often experience their therapist to be like their narcissistic parent in one way or another. And these moments often arise when their therapist fails them in some way. Perhaps the therapist is late to session, or not as supportive in their responses as the client might like, or does not follow up on paperwork that they said they would for the client. In such moments, the scapegoat survivor's template for closeness may be telling them not to complain. Though it can be challenging, there is also an opportunity here. If the survivor can express what they do not like about their therapist's behavior, then they have an opportunity to see how their therapist reacts. Does the therapist want to know and fully understand what it was like for the client? Does the therapist take accountability for their actions or inactions? And do you have the sense that your feelings truly matter to this therapist? Well, if the answer is yes to these questions, then the therapist might still be a safe person. These sequences provide a new way of knowing who is safe today. Safety does not mean that the other never acts in hurtful ways to you. Rather, safety lies in the other's care about your hurt feelings and their sincere efforts to repair the relationship. This is a realistic definition of safety because it does not require anyone to be perfect. It just requires others to acknowledge and make amends for when their human fallibility results in hurt feelings in someone that they care about. So, to sum everything up, by shifting the focus from whether feelings are right or wrong to how others respond to your feelings, scapegoat survivors can begin to identify safe people who might actually still genuinely care, even if there's an interaction where you felt hurt. And I think therapy can serve as an invaluable tool in this process because it can provide a space to practice the vulnerability of saying how you in fact feel and gauge the therapist reaction to see if in the end it proves to feel safe. Well, I hope you found today's video useful if this question of how to identify safe people is something that you wrestle with at times. And again, as always, I want to thank you for your support of this channel, in the comments section and the resources around it. And with that, I look forward to posting again next Friday. Take care.